Thank you. The next paper is from Dr. Soli Shahvar. He's from the University of Haifa. He's the director of the Esri Center for Iran and Persian Gulf Studies. And the title of his talk is The Baha'is of Iran, Pessimism and Optimism Combined.
Computer gone or what? Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Good morning, everyone. First, I would like to join my preceding colleagues to thank Center for Iranian Studies, Professor Menashri, Dr. David Yerushalmi, Dr. Litvak, and all the other participants in this, the staff of the center. Usually when I talk about Baha'is, there is always, before audience like yourself, that there are certain Iranians in, they always, a couple or two coming after the lecture and says, "Are you Baha'i?" Shema Baha'i hasti? So the answer to that is not. Once I spoke something about Zoroastrianism, and a couple came and asked me the same, "Are you Shema Zartushti hasti?" So you understand why I want to talk about women issues. So, just a minute. Next. So who are the Baha'is? Yes? Believers in the Baha'i faith founded in 1863. If we start the point of time with the minor declaration of Baha'u'llah by Mirza Hussein Ali Nuri Baha'u'llah, who came from an Iranian aristocratic family, one of whose members was Mirza Agha Khan Nuri, Prime Minister during 1851-58. What are the main principles of the Baha'i faith? Universal religion, it means all religions are coming from the same source, God. Progressive revelation, it means all manifestations or all revelations are from the same source, but every time God sends a new message, which is more accommodating to the new age. So this is the way that it was with Moses, with Jesus, and with Muhammad, and now is with Baha'u'llah. Individuality means that every individual, meaning Baha'i individual, has to seek truth by his individual efforts. In other words, there is no clerics in the Baha'i faith, or clergy. Unity, the unity of humankind, yes, humanity, all united. Religion should be the cause of love and unity and not the cause of diversity. Religious, racial, political, national, and class prejudices are destructive and based on ignorance. They cause strife and impede moral progress. Equality of all individuals, as I said before. And within that, equality of women and men. Education, mainly for children and women, are one of the most important principles of the Baha'i faith. And they come usually before education for all. I mean, children and women have precedence over general education. Religion must be in conformity with reason and science. If it is not, then it is ignorant superstition. Extremes of wealth, and more especially of poverty, should be abolished. All must have access to the necessities of life. And one of the most important principles is globalization. I mean, in the 19th century, already we had someone talking about globalization, and within that, regarding global security, global rule of law, and even a global language, things that we think that came much later within the 20th century. Well, some basic data on the Baha'is of Iran. the most common figure representing the number of the Baha'is in Iran today is 300,000. And this figure has been ongoing for a long period, so I don't know how accurate it is. Going back to 19th century, when the Babi movement and the Baha'i faith started, I've looked into various documents and the range, I mean Persian and English and some translated Russian documents, and the range is between 100,000 to 2 million. So I can tell you it's a vast range. They have been the largest non-Muslim religious minority in Iran since their appearance on the Iranian scene. Unlike most other religious minorities, they come from all ethnic backgrounds, live throughout Iran, and are not identifiable by any outward characteristics, their names or geographical location. Also, unlike the other religious minorities who are considered as protected infidels, kuffar zimmi, the Baha'is are considered as unprotected infidels at war with Islam, kuffar harbi. They are commonly referred to as an astray or misguided sect, firqe zaleh. So why the Baha'is have been persecuted in Iran and the Islamic world? Well, the main issue, the main cause, the basic issue is the interpretation of Khatam al-Anbiya or Khatam al-Nabiyin. If you refer to, of course, it's referred to Muhammad. Yes, Muslims believe that Muhammad is the last of the prophets, seal of the prophets. In other words, no prophet after him. While Baha'is believe that each religion has its own term, and Muhammad is the prophet for the Muslims, and his term has ended with the appearance of the Bab and the Baha'u'llah. And they also believe that the world is divided into cycles, and the Adamic cycle, which means the cycle that started with Adam and ended with Muhammad. Muhammad is the last prophet of this cycle, and the new cycle started with the appearance of the Bab and Baha'u'llah, and this is the Baha'i cycle. So that's the conflict between the two religions. Why Shi'i clerics are the most staunch enemies of the Baha'is? Well, the Bab, who appeared on the Iranian seas in 1844, claimed to be the Qa'im, the Shi'i Mahdi, the riser, as we say. And accepting him as the true, the Mahdi, it means that all the clerics don't have any function anymore. Then there is no justifications for their functions. So that's one thing. Giving, shall we say, acknowledging the Baha'i faith would have meant, which I said before, that there is no clerics in the Baha'i faith. It means that, again, they are redundable, as we say. Yeah? And the fact that Babi Baha'i religion, which came out of Shaykhi school in Shia, differs on many issues with the Shi'i belief, has made the believers in that religion as heretics and apostates, murtad, yes, in the eyes of the Shi'i ulama and their followers. And last, the rapid spread of Baha'i faith in Iran and outside Iran, but we are talking about the Iranian context, led the Shi'i clerics to fear the erosion of their authority. So these are the main reasons why the Shi'i clerics have been the most staunch enemies of the Baha'i faith and Baha'is. What are the main accusations against the Baha'is and the Baha'i faith? Enemies of Islam. Yes. The issue that I referred earlier, they don't agree with Muhammad being Khatam al-Nabiyin. Yes. They are accused of being tools of Russian imperialism, British colonialism, American expansionism, and most recently of Zionism, created in order to divide and fragment the Muslim world. Secret agents and spies of Israel, the fact that the headquarters is in Haifa, where I come from, this is the most vivid proof. Supporters of Muhammad Reza Shah and Pahlavi and benefited from his regime. We can think of names, yes, like Amir Abbas Hoveida, who, although we have the authority here on Professor Milani, Amir Abbas Hoveida, although he was not exactly a Baha'i, and here I should say that Hushang Shihabi, in his article in the last or the recent collection of articles on the Baha'is of Iran, socio-historical studies, differentiates between an active Baha'i and a Baha'izadeh. Somebody who was born into a Baha'i family not necessarily is an active Baha'i. So it's not so much accepted by the Baha'is I know, but there is a differentiation. Anyway, but in the eyes of the Iranians, Hoveida is a Baha'i, yes, in the eyes of many Iranians. For example, the Shah's personal doctor, Ayadi, was also a Baha'i, and many other numbers. The tutor, the personal tutor of the Prince Regent, Dr. Maryam Rasekh, Baha'i, and many others. And I said about benefited from his regime. Many Baha'i businessmen, like the prominent Habibullah Sabet, who initiated and actually the TV introduction or advent of TV into Iran was much because of his activity. Or Sabet Pasal, another Baha'i businessman. Or Hojabra Yazdani, also a very famous Baha'i businessman, who actually there is a volume of the series of the Savak documents on different personality being published in recent years. There is one volume also on Hojabra Yazdani. Collaborators with the Savak, yes. So, I mean, the fact that the head of the third bureau, who was in charge of the internal security in Iran, was Parviz Sabeti, another Baha'i, or Baha'izadeh if you want, is the most vivid example of the collaboration between Baha'is and Savak. Propagators of prostitution, immorality, and adultery. Prostitution, first of all, because Baha'i weddings are not recognized by the legal authorities in Iran and in other Islamic countries, or most. Therefore, their getting together is prostitution, kind of. And because there is mixed councils or assemblies and gatherings of women and men, Baha'i women and men, this is also an issue of prostitution and immorality. So we come now to what is the pessimistic as far as the Baha'is are concerned. Yes, and here we have seen as heretical sect in Islam, which deviates from Shia Islam. Baha'is are devoid of any rights and persecuted. These persecutions include the following categories. Legal persecution, yes, such as filing false charges against the Baha'is. Bodily persecution or punishments, physical attacks, arrest, kidnapping, imprisonment, assassination, murder, and execution of Baha'is and Baha'i leaders. Property-related persecution, confiscation of Baha'i properties, looting, burning, and destroying Baha'i homes and buildings, desecration, demolition, and destruction of Baha'i holy places, religious sites and cemeteries, and so on. Economic and financial persecution, such as dismissal from employment, abstaining from employing Baha'is, refraining from making any business deals with Baha'is, and appropriation of their financial assets. Educational persecution, non-admittance of Baha'is to universities, persecution of Baha'i school children and youngsters through the vilification, beating, and expulsion from schools and universities, and enrolling Baha'i children in schools with strong and imposing religious Shia ideology in order to distance them from the Baha'i belief. Denial of government benefits such as pension. Another issue is intense anti-Baha'i propaganda. These include the following. publication of academic books and articles. Just in recent years, we have Sayyid Zahid Zahidani, who wrote Baha'iyat dar Iran, Baha'ism in Iran, a very anti-Baha'i publication. And we have a new person on the scene, someone called Mohsen Roufi, who wrote his two recent books are actually online, and one is Pire Estemar, or shall we say old colonialism, and the other one Joye Paye Tsar, which means more or less the footprints of the Tsar, yes, all in trying to create such an image that the Baha'is are working for foreign elements. Confession of ex-Baha'is, excuse me, memoirs of anti-Baha'i clerics. Here there are a number of memoirs that one of them is, just bear with me for a moment. I have to, yes. Yes, اظهارات و خاطرات آیت الله حاج شیخ حسین لنکرانی درباره بابیگری و بهاییگری. Memoirs and memoirs of Lankarani about Baha'ism and Baha'i faith. A confession of ex-Baha'is. There is also a number of, I don't know whether there are true Baha'is or but that they are apparently have been converted back to Islam, and they of course used as a propaganda tool as well against the Baha'is. Frequent anti-Baha'i articles in the state-controlled media. In recent, in the last, for example, between the second half of 2008, almost every day there was an anti-Baha'i article in, especially in the Kayhan newspaper, which is, of course, as you know, very close to the conservatives or the radicals in the regime. Public and anti-Baha'i statements of clerics. These are, the statements are so many, so I just keep that by Janati, Mesbah Yazdi, and whoever you want from all these radical clerics. Academic conferences and seminars on Baha'ism, which is usually to present them as in the very negative aspect. Special volumes in academic periodicals and magazines, such as Fasnameh Mutalaat Tarikhi number 17, or the magazine Ayyam number 29, and so on. The whole volume is dedicated to the Baha'i issue. Highly informative and comprehensive internet site and blogs, such as the following. I gave two sites, BahaiResearch.ir, BahaiSmInIran.com, and blogs Zedde Baha, yes, anti-Baha'i, IranBlog.com, or Omid Nur 14. That's only example. There are plenty of them. The main characteristics of these means of anti-Baha'i propaganda is to prove that the Baha'is are outsiders, anti-Islamic and anti-Iranian, linked to the Shah, Israel, Zionism, and the West. Of course, in a country that the nationalistic or the nationalism is very strong, and he has been shall we say, the collective memory of the Iranians is very much affected by this invasion by foreigners. So if you categorize someone or a group of people as anti-Iranian or as serving foreign elements, then you consolidate or you stress more the antagonism towards them. Some examples of acts against the Baha'is. Here we see a desecrated Baha'i grave in Yazd. I'm sorry regarding the quality of some of these examples, but here you see also an that says actually that the problems in our country is created by the Baha'is. Then we have to take revenge from the Baha'is. This is destruction of the House of the Bab in 1979. This is convicted of collaboration with Savak. And Bahaism, 153 people will be fired from the Department of Education of Eastern Azerbaijan. That's from Etelaat, 18 February 1980. That's the English translation. Then, for example, here, 8 Baha'is have been executed because of being members of the Shabakeh Jasusi spy net, so spy network of Baha'is. And 2 people have been within the information. You can see that they are Baha'is, but 2 people have been arrested because of cooperation with World Zionism. And these are forms. Because of 5 minutes here, I have to run more speedily. Here you have different documents that actually name people of Baha'is that have been, for example, General Mogharrebi, Russian spy, the General Dr. Riyazullah Qadimi, special Savak doctor, yeah, and different things. This is a secret letter that actually gives the criteria to how to persecute Baha'is. And this is other examples that, because of time, I just go through. Here you have actually kind of a table how to follow these Baha'is. Yes, you have information, population. It was given to the security deputies of the provincial governors of different provincial governments in Iran, how to follow and how to fill data regarding Baha'is. So you have here population, income, occupation, social cooperation, social disputes, social-political activities, main element, which members, contact with foreign assemblies, and so on. These are the 7 Baha'is that have been captured, arrested last year, and it's almost we passed 1 year since their arrest, and they are represented by Shirin Ebadi, the Nobel Peace winner that has been since accused of being herself a Baha'i. So after all these negative things, what could be optimistic as far as the future of the Baha'is of Iran is concerned? Well, first, the success to provide higher education for the Baha'i youth through underground apparatus of the Baha'i Institute of Higher Education. The Baha'is managed to create a kind of underground university. The staff are usually either Iranian Baha'is who studied abroad or inside Iran during the Pahlavi regime, and they are actually students are graduated there. In the Baha'i World Center Library, you have copies of thesis of that university. I mean, MA thesis. They don't provide, as far as I know, PhDs, but there is also a program with foreign universities. A growing focus on human rights in Iran in general and Baha'is in particular, mainly through the Baha'i representative in the UN. A growing support for the cause of the Baha'is of Iran in international forums, the beginning of a new trend in academic research by non-Baha'i scholars in conducting non-partial studies on the Baha'is of Iran. The volume that I mentioned is one good example. And most important, optimistic expressions of Iranian non-Baha'is regarding the Baha'is of Iran. First expressions, I would say, or one of the main things is Ayatollah, no less than Ayatollah Hossein Ali Montazeri. I believe, to saving time, I didn't, 1 minute. I won't expand on who is he exactly. He said in 14 May 2008, since they are, the Baha'is, I'm making it short, the citizens of this country, they have the right of citizenship and to live in this country. Furthermore, they must benefit from the Islamic compassion which is stressed in Quran and by the religious authorities. Another example is what was published in the February 3rd, 2009, the famous letter what we call apology letter by a group of 267 Iranian men and women, writers, scholars, journalists, intellectuals, and artists, all living in 19 countries outside Iran, and the title "Ma Sharmginim," we are ashamed, yes, and a series of apologetic. That's the whole document. That we are apologize for being silent for so long and have been silent to the abuse of your rights. And the last example is, and the most, I would say, sharp example is the Hojatul Islam Hassan Yousefi Eshkevari, a reformist cleric in Iran, who in his recent article published in the Ruz online and then in Khandaniha site, he very much came out in support of the Baha'is. I will just read it from here to be as fast as possible. He makes yes. He says, although such a silence could be understood as far as the religious Muslims are concerned, the fact remains that such a silence and forgetfulness is widely discerned among the non-religious, the secular, the Democrats, and the liberals of the leftists. Since the constitutional period till the present, nothing has been said or written by all those Iranian freedom and justice seekers regarding this group of Iranians. Then he says, it seems that the main reason for this was the fact that the Baha'i question was, has been regarded as a taboo. Thus, no one dared to approach it, at least publicly. No result of this situation was the most scholars of Iran prefer not to do research on this sect, thus contributing towards the lack of information about them. And it gives a lot of very critical of, on the one side, of the clerics, the Shi'i clerics in Iran, and on the other side of all these freedom seekers and liberals and protective, those who are calling for the defense of human rights. Another minute, I finish. So in conclusion, I would like to say that I believe that the Baha'i cause or the Baha'i issue is much beyond its relevance to 300,000 Iranians. I think it's a litmus test for all those freedom seekers and those human rights activists in Iran, a litmus test for how, to what extent the future Iran or the democracy in Iran will be a real democracy. In other words, if you respect human rights of the Baha'is, then it is one of the highest criteria for saying that you are a true democracy in this country or in this regime. And another issue is very important, is that by abusing the rights of the Baha'is and abusing the rights of many Iranians, actually the Islamic Republic has created, has kind of blurred, yes, have blurred the difference between the division between a Shiite and a Baha'is, and has created a basis for a much closer ties between Baha'is and Shi'is on the axis of human rights. So I believe that more and more Iranians are getting to know this and getting to understand this, and in my certain interviews or conversations that I had with a few Ayatollahs, they actually privately, they say that even in their future regime, there will be a separation of religion and state, and asking them about the Baha'is, they said that they will respect the Baha'is. So thank you very much. I'm sorry for... Okay, I will do that afterwards.